Morning, y'all. Welcome to Schmucks with Guns. This is our part-by-part series on reloading. There'll be some differences here and there, but hopefully we'll be pointing that out. So let's get right to it. The first thing that we're going to do is what they call sizing and depriming. Here's your standard 30-30 casing, and it has been fired, a once fired round, in good shape. So we're going to take and we're going to make this into something usable. The first step that we do, now I use a simple single stage Lee Challenger press. Simple as can be. That's exactly what it does. Let me switch cameras. Well, let's see. I can't switch cameras on my phone here. But what this basically does is this will hold in our die. It will also have a spot for the casing to go into, and then it will do the pressing. Hence, therefore, that's why they call it a press. Okay, now what I've done is I've set in our depriming die. This does two things. It does sizing and depriming. As that round's fired, that casing will tend to swell a little bit. So this will do two things. It will shrink it back down to the proper diameter, as well as pop a little primer out of the bottom end, so we'll be ready to go. Now, I have tumbled this brass once to get it fairly clean. I personally tend to do a second tumble, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it's as simple as you take and you slide the case in. Well, I should say, in order to set this up properly, notice that when I bring this into full action, I have a contact up here. This is where the casing holder and the bottom of the die will actually touch. That's the proper setting when you're doing sizing and depriming. So switching between calibers, that's your first measurement that you want to deal with. So let's get this one in here, and as we bring it up, there'll be some pressure to that, and we get that. You saw that little primer come popping out of the back end here, and then we bring her down. Okay, so there's stage one. This casing now has been sized and deprimed. Now I have a check gauge that I can slide this into to make sure that it is in dimension. And that's something that we'll deal with a little bit later once we start getting into checks and balances. Hey, government, figure it out. But there we go. There's stage one. We now have this casing sized and deprimed, and I will be running it through a second tumbling to clean it up again. Partly is to get some of the grease and stuff off it. Occasionally I do have to, especially with the rifle cartridges, I really have to make sure that these are lubed well. And I've got a couple of different styles. I use a paste sometimes. Sometimes I use just a little dip in motor oil every few cases. With pistol cases, sometimes I even use something as simple as like a spray-on adhesive, like or not adhesive, lubricant, similar to WD-40. I try to work with something a little in the heavier side, perhaps maybe like Liquid Wrench has got some graphite in it, which really works pretty good. So anyways, stage one, let's go to stage two.